I'm not even gonna do like a big YouTube intro, since once again this is being recorded on Twitch, but genuinely, I just kind of want to get into this. We are going to talk about, in my opinion, now, again, in my opinion, because I have not played with everybody yet. But I've played a little bit of the mode, and the best part is you can still just read. You can read all the changes that they do. Like, wow, change. It literally shows you everything, so that's really nice. We are going to go over what I think are the best changes to come from Currency Wars, because they have altered a lot of the characters in the game, and in my opinion, that's really, really cool. And I pray, I'm on my hands and knees, hoping that these are permanent changes that they are going to implement for a lot of the characters going forward. Maybe not as overtuned as they are. I'm looking at somebody in particular, but I do genuinely hope that a lot of these changes that they have implemented into Currency Wars will be changes that will happen for all these characters at one point or another. Because many of the characters who have the best buffs, in my opinion, they desperately need these changes. Most of them, at least. Again, most of them is the key word here. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first character I want to talk about, we are gonna talk about Himiko, who I'm not sure if people still know this nowadays, because I feel like I don't bring it up as much, because I don't talk about my favorite characters anymore. It's not really a topic that just comes up naturally. I love Himiko so much. I think Himiko is just a super fun character, and in general, I just love her design, her story, her voice work. I just love Himiko overall. And what they did for Himiko specifically, I adore. It is so simple, yet so beautiful, chat. They made sure she could actually overcap on charges. It's cinema. It is genuinely cinema. She won't lose charges constantly, and that in itself could have been the entire change, and she still would have gotten on this list. She would have been on this list either way if that was the change. I mean, to be fair, that is the bulk of her change, but man, that makes me so happy. This is such a simple change that genuinely, even if it's a big process to buff characters, this is something that should have been changed almost immediately. This should not have taken until Currency Wars in version 3.7, when she was a launch character. It should not have taken this long for this change to have occurred, because I feel like when the break meta came out, this is absolutely when it should have been changed, but, you know, again, they weren't doing buffs back then. It would have been a huge thing, and then if you only end up buffing one character, then it kind of gets a little messy, blah, 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 all that stuff. I guess I get it. The way that the charges work is that every time you break an enemy, you gain a charge. Once you have 3 charges, you get to unleash your follow-up attack, which is a fair bit of your damage. I would say, no, it's actually almost your entire damage, if we're being real. Because skill really doesn't do too much. Skill is mainly just there to actually get you your charges. So you're going to be relying on your follow-up attack a lot. And the problem with Himiko always is that because you only get 3 charges, you don't overcap. And Himiko is best in AoE scenarios. So more often than not, you're going to be breaking 4 to 5 enemies all at once, especially if you have Fugue. Because Fugue, you're going to be able to break an extra toughness bar and get another charge by breaking. So you're constantly getting 5 stacks when using Himiko. And as a result of that, you are only getting 3 stacks. You're unleashing your follow-up attack. And if you were able to overcap on stacks, even to 5. If you could overcap stacks to 5, you would unleash your follow-up attack, get another break, and you would probably jump back up to 5 stacks again. and unleash your next follow-up attack to actually do more significant damage. Which, Himiko, as a 1.x character, her multipliers are bad. She doesn't have very helpful traces, because there's a trace that I always make fun of. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but, oh, it's the version 1.x trace that Hook and Clara have, where it just makes them 35% more resistant to CC effects. That is genuinely one of the traces in this game that they gave out to multiple characters. I'm pretty sure Arlen has it too. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. Like, major traces early on in this game sucked. They sucked so bad, it's not even funny. So really, she's not getting a lot of help from the multipliers on her kit or her kit in general. With that being the case, you need more damage output to make her useful. And having the charge system work in that way would make it a huge benefit, because in an AoE scenario, you would probably get 3 follow-up attacks plus in a row, which Himiko already gets that usually. So with the way that the stack generation would actually work, you would genuinely get probably 6 follow-ups. That would actually be pretty meaningful for your damage, because a strong built Himiko with like a break or a crit or a hybrid build is gonna do a fair amount of damage per follow-up, and especially when you get 6 of them in a row. That's so good. And that is why this buff was, like, it would be so nice. You don't get to feel it quite as much in Currency Wars, because Currency Wars is the most inflated HP you could ever see in your entire life. Even then, you do still feel it sometimes, because Himiko is just really strong and really helpful in this mode, in my opinion. Maybe not at, like, the higher levels, but for most players playing Currency Wars, you're probably gonna really like Himiko. And that is very, like, you're making the character more fun. That is what we should be doing with buffs, and I feel like that is being accomplished perfectly with this change. Because also, I didn't even mention, besides just purely charges, they added on even more to what Himiko does. Whenever the follow-up attack goes off, you increase damage taken by targets by 10%. That is pretty nice. I like that a lot, personally. It is really, really cool. Because damage taken, defense shred, and, like, vulnerability, all that. I know damage taken and vulnerability are basically the same thing, but different wordings. Whatever. This is all stuff that is essential to the kit of break characters. And Himiko in the base game is not a break character, she is a follow-up character. She follows that archetype a bit more closely. Break is just a thing that happened to get super, super good, so it ended up becoming more of a focus of what she does. With this specifically, the increased damage taken when you are going to be constantly spamming follow-up attacks, that is so, so nice, and it is a great design choice, because they automatically assume. They are assuming you are going to get multiple follow-ups in a row. They are planning on it, and that is why they have implemented that. I like that a lot. That is really, really good design. Now, please, make it in the actual game. I will say the other change is just not feasible, because it allows Himiko to completely ignore weakness types. Yeah, that's not happening, especially not on a skill. I'm insane, but I'm not that insane. That's impossible to ask for, but it would be cool. I would love it. If we could just get this first change with the charges and the damage taken, I think it would improve Himiko substantially. And if they gave her the full effect, which also increases her break effect by 100% when the victory rush is triggered, oh my goodness. That, cinema, sex. I don't even have any more words. I would love that so much. So that was a long talk about Himiko. The next character probably will not get the same amount of attention, I'm gonna be honest. Let's talk about... You know what? Let's stay in the realm of break real quick. So let's talk about Firefly. This is an incredible change in my opinion, because it eliminates Firefly's biggest issue, being her uptime. The biggest issue with Firefly is absolutely her uptime in the SAM form. Other break characters do not have to kind of suffer the same way that Firefly does. Rappa has downtime in between, but it is very, very low if you have her light cone. So that's honestly not too bad. Even with the light cone on Firefly, you are going to have a fair bit of downtime in between your SAM transformations. And that's really bad because you're going to lose so much damage. This is also an issue that, like, none of the other break characters have as much. By eliminating the need to transform into SAM and letting you stay in that form forever, that is so beneficial just by itself. But then, they went even further. They gave her more super break damage while in the form. You get higher energy regeneration, and she gets a completely new ultimate called Supernova Overload. This is the attack that was promoted heavily leading up to Currency Wars, and understandably so, it looks incredible. It is one of the coolest looking ults visually I feel like that this game can offer right now. It is very well built for what Firefly does. It does a lot of damage. It attacks all enemies, which Firefly did not have an ability to do beforehand. And it also does toughness reduction, which that's really good for Firefly, who does have a bit of a slower time to break compared to the optimal Rappa team and the optimal Boot Hill team, in my opinion. Obviously, if you're working with an E2 Firefly, this is always going to be different. So, you know, I know somebody in the comments is, like, furiously typing right now. E2 Firefly player, please calm down. Just calm down. This is an incredible change. I really like what they've done with Firefly specifically. And I am going to be kind of shocked if this is actually not a part of the buffs that they do. Maybe they don't do the new ultimate. Maybe the ultimate is changed heavily. But I think a permanent complete combustion state is a fantastic change. And I really feel like it wouldn't even be asking too much in the current day and age. Like, it's weird to say that, considering how powerful it felt when it first came out. But then we need to remember that Archer exists. Then we need to remember that Finon exists. Finon can turn into a playable super boss. I do not think letting her stay in the SAM form for longer is really that much of a detriment to game design when Finon exists. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't think it's that bad. So I really do hope that Firefly gets to keep these changes, but again, we'll have to see. Because Firefly buffs are coming. Firefly buffs are in fact coming. It is just going to be a matter of when, because that character has such a limited usability compared to almost any other DPS character from 2.x. So, whenever they do come around, I hope that what they've implemented in Currency Wars will stick. We can go through a bit of a quicker one this time around. Let's talk about all the way down here. Let's talk about Gepard. Gepard has very, very simple changes, but they are incredibly impactful for what he wants to do as a character. And most importantly, it finally gives him at least a little bit more relevance when he really didn't have any in the base game anymore. His biggest purpose beyond, like, early game sustain was he could be nichely used with Acheron. He would implant debuffs with his skill, and he could be used on the Trend of the Universal Market Light Cone. That gives you a debuff every time you are hit. That's not bad. That gives Acheron stacks. That was probably the best use of Gepard in modern day. And I'm going to be honest, if you were doing that in modern day, you were Omega throwing. You should have your Star Rail account taken away from you if you are doing that in the year of our Lord 2025. And about to be the year of our Lord 2026, depending on when this video comes out. So that already just wasn't too good. What they've done with Gepard, it's simple, but it is really, really nice. You get new shields when an enemy's phase changes, so a boss changes, or you get a new shield once the wave swaps. That alone is already very nice. I like that a lot, and considering his biggest issue is shield uptime, and the only way for him to use shields is through his ult, this is simple yet really effective. Genuinely, I think this is an incredible change. I wish there was actually more you could do with this. Like, maybe every time you freeze an enemy specifically, you get more shields. That way, it encourages you to build effect hit rate on Gepard. You'll actually be using him for his primary mechanic, which is exactly what we should be doing. It's the same way that Aventurine and Cypher have traces that prioritize their best stats and give you crit rate in reward for it because you are prioritizing those best stats. It is the same thing that you could do with Gepard. Have him build effect hit rate and increase either his damage or allow him to gain more shields when you land that freeze. I think that's really, really nice. But beyond that, they've also given Gepard a counterattack. Not really what I expected them to do to quote-unquote fix Gepard, but I think it is a very suitable kind of choice. He gets one charge every single time he is attacked. Or no, it's actually when enemy targets attack. Every time enemy targets attack, you get a point of charge. When you get 4 charge points, you get to launch your counterattack that is going to hit all enemy targets. That's kinda nice. And it scales off of his defense percent, so once again, you're getting rewarded by having your best stat be very high and very well built. That's good design. I like that a lot. And it gives Gepard more usefulness beyond just, hey, I want you to sit there, get hit, try and freeze my enemy, and then spam your ult and hope we don't die. No. Gepard is going to be contributing way more damage. He is going to be way more reliable as a sustain. And even then, there's another change where you get a better talent. When an ally target shield effect exceeds their max HP, their attack increases by 40%. I don't reasonably know how easy this will be to achieve, but if you can do this, oh my goodness, that would be so nice. I think in the base game, you would have to lower it to half their HP, but if you can get that to actually occur, and even then, your main DPS often has very low HP compared to the rest of your party, that might be fully feasible. That might legitimately be possible to get. And if you can, you're getting a 40% attack increase. That's really nice, and it makes him into an actual sustain support rather than just a sustain, which is the worst thing you can be in Star Rail. It doesn't equalize anything, but it puts him much closer to the DHPT of the world than the Natasha of the world. These changes would actually make it so that he is an optimal, not even optimal, but he's just a better pick. Like, you can actually find a world where he will be useful and he will be not a completely mediocre choice compared to almost every other sustain in the game. And if you can do that with these changes, then I think you've done perfect. Oh my god, how long have I been recording for? Oh, it's only been 22 minutes. I believe there's 2 more characters I have written down here. Let me take a look real quick. Yes, we are going to talk about the less interesting of the 2. We are going to talk about Jing Yuan. Now, I say less interesting. I would like to say, I think Jing Yuan's buffs are fantastic. I think they are really, really good. I have really just loved what they've done with him every time I've played it. With his new talent, you summon Lightning Lord at the start of battle. Lightning Lord has 240 speed, and you get 5 hits per action when you start. That is really, really nice, because they've also raised the cap. You no longer have Lightning Lord at 10 hits max. Lightning Lord can make it all the way up to 15 hits. That is incredible. Like, 5 hits of Lightning Lord already do a lot of damage. Now let's add on 5 more. That is really, really good. I love that. The damage of Lightning Lord is already pretty admirable with Sunday nowadays, and then especially if you have E1 Sunday, like, beautiful. But increasing the amount of hits per action he can do, already incredible, so much more damage. And then, they have made Jing Yuan immune to crowd control debuffs. I don't think that can stay. I think that's probably a little too good, because that kind of eliminates your sustain. But damn, dude, that is a really nice change for Jing Yuan to ensure that Lightning Lord is never fucking, like, messed up. He's never taken out of the battle. That is so nice. I love that so much. All right, sorry, I just really need to get that one out of my system. Back to the Lightning Lord. Lightning Lord, there is a new mechanic that they've implemented for Currency Wars. After accumulating all 15 hits, you actually have the Lightning Lord move immediately. That is kind of crazy. The reason I say that is because, well, with Sunday's buffs last for 2 turns, I believe. So, Sunday automatically will action advance the Lightning Lord either way, so that kind of throws things off a little bit. But if you're starting out with, like, 5 hits, and then you get to ult, you get to have Jing Yuan attack, and then Lightning Lord will just automatically move up upon advancing Jing Yuan. I really like how that works out. It allows Lightning Lord to hypothetically get more actions, and even if it doesn't actually result in him getting more actions, you're getting more damage. Because 15 hits of Lightning Lord with a Sunday damage boost. That's incredible. There is so much power behind that. And his ramp-up time is drastically improved by having more hits per action to start with. It's really, really nice. So now, we can actually drop down back to the other thing I was talking about, where Jing Yuan is immune to crowd control debuffs. There's more to it. After you use skill or ultimate, you get even more hits per action. You get additional hits on top of what you're already getting. Because I'm pretty sure I think skill gives like 2 or 3 stacks of Lightning Lord. So now imagine you get 2 more on top of whatever you're already getting. That's amazing. Love that. After Lightning Lord's action, Jing Yuan gets his action advanced by 50%. And you recover a skill point. You recover a skill point whenever Lightning Lord actually manages to attack. So now, you're already working with the SP regeneration machine that is Sunday, and now Jing Yuan can be self-sufficient with his own skill points by having Lightning Lord attack. This is one of the most mindful changes I've seen in this game, because SP is such an important resource, and now you have built it into Jing Yuan's kit that he is going to be able to be more sufficient to the point that you will always be able to fully unleash your maximum possible damage with no fear of having any sort of SP issue. Which this also means, hypothetically, you could start switching what support you use with Jing Yuan. Maybe you use, instead of like a Robin, you use somebody else who is a bit more SP intensive, like maybe you do an RMC. Who knows? The possibilities are the important thing. The possibilities presented by this change, they become endless because you are getting so much more freedom by having this sort of ability unlocked to have Jing Yuan move more and to have him regain SP for himself. It is a phenomenal change, and I really, really love it. They absolutely cooked on this. Now, again, this one I cannot stress enough. Implement it. Jing Yuan is a character who I personally feel is in very, very dire need of buffs because he's so reliant on other characters to do anything nowadays. If his base kit was even a little bit better, he would excel so much more, in my opinion. They really, really need to improve him a little bit, and changing all of this, oh my dear lord, It would be beautiful to see this actually change. Alright, we've got one more to talk about today, chat. And one of you in chat did end up guessing it correct. The last character to talk about today is Welt. Now, here's the problem with Welt in the base game. Welt is a character who sadly doesn't have an identity. He is a nihility character who doesn't really increase damage taken. He doesn't have a reliable DOT status. It doesn't really do damage. And his primary mechanic is a mechanic that is, in my opinion, horribly designed. His primary mechanic is slow. Slow is unreliable, genuinely. It's okay, but it doesn't have a lot of usefulness, and for some teams, it is actively a detriment to what they want to accomplish. Especially the path that he is on, Nihility. DOT hates for enemies to be slow, because that means you're losing out on damage. Welt just didn't really function with the team that he is meant to be the best with, and he didn't really mesh with any other characters in this game, besides, in very situational cases, Acheron. That's not good. So how do you fix that? Well, you completely break what the mechanic was meant to do. Ultimate change. Synthetic black hole. You deal damage to all enemies, you inflict 3 stacks of a new debuff, and you delay combat end countdown by 20 action value. This is something that would not work in the base game as much. However, imagine if that was implemented. Imagine if you were on the verge of zero cycling, but you need that one extra turn. You need those few extra actions. Or maybe you need your enemy to just, hit you one less time. Welt, baby. Welt will push them back. He will extend the action value. And there you go. Welt has somehow managed to save your entire run. It's genuinely really interesting to see how this works, because I feel like this is something that would not work super well in the base game. But the fact that he is capable of such a mind-boggling mechanic for Currency War specifically, it's insane. It feels really cool to see him given such a unique mechanic all to himself. And even with this being the case, even with him having this, insane mechanic, he was also given other changes. He now has a new debuff that he applies every time an ally target, inflicts a debuff. The stack will reduce speed by 4, increase damage taken, and every time Welt hits them, it'll increase the damage taken from Welt. And it stacks up to 5 times. So you can reduce enemy speed by 20, you can increase their damage taken by 20, and when Welt hits them, you can increase their damage taken by 40. That is really cool. And it pairs well with just the damage output that he usually does, which is his skill. Because his skill can be really powerful. And if they put energy regen more into his base kit instead of in his Eidolons, Welt could really make something happen here, it feels like. I don't know how exactly they would implement this exact change on Synthetic Black Hole, because I feel like slow is still just not a great mechanic in my opinion. But introducing this new debuff that Welt has into introducing some sort of way to make Synthetic Black Hole actually push back the counter on your zero cycle or something, or just push back the action value counter in general, so that you have more time to work with in any given cycle. Oh my god, that would be incredible, and I would love to see it. I hope they find some way to make this properly work in the base game, and we see it introduced, because I would love it so much to see Welt and Himiko back on top, dominating the game. That would be insane. I think I've wrapped up everything I wanted to say, so there are quite a few characters who had really interesting changes in Currency Wars overall. Another character I had written down was actually Yanqing and Boothill. Yanqing and Boothill received some very specific changes that were pretty beneficial to what they wanted to do. And Yanqing especially, I love that he just summons a giant sword out of the sky to kill you. that's kind of sick. These were just the characters I wanted to talk about the most, that were the most interesting to me, and admittedly, that I was the absolute most biased about. It's my channel, I can do what I want. I hope you guys all enjoyed this. Leave in the comments below if you have any characters you wanted me to talk about or you think are really interesting as well. I've got plenty more good videos coming out soon, so I will see you guys then. Bye-bye.